So the title for today's message is Three Lessons from Life of Abraham. When I first started my work, it's a long time back, just came out of the college, I started working. So at the end of the first year, my manager actually did a performance review. He told me all the places where I'm doing well and the places where I have to improve. He told me that I did not know how to write a good email because I used to work for a client. I used to work in Calcutta, but then my client was in Germany. My emails were rude. No one taught me how to write an email. And in those days in the college also we don't use a lot of email. So he told me that you have to improve the way you write that email. Because I used to use, like for you, Y-O-U, like I used to put you, that colloquial way of communicating, and a lot other things. The way I was, he told me that I was pretty rude in the emails that I used to write. Then I asked him, how can I improve? No one taught me all these things in the college, or I never wrote all these emails to these clients and all. Then he told me that observe others, learn from others. There are a lot of experienced people in the company. They send you emails, look at how they are writing that email. Or you are copied on some of the emails that they send to the clients. Learn from them. So from that day onwards, I got that drive of observing others. In the work, actually, I observe others. I observe when someone faces a challenge, I observe them. How they are facing the challenge. How they are overcoming it. How they are resolving the conflicts. When multiple teams are in conflicts, I look at some of the senior people, how they are actually resolving the conflict. So I had the tendency of observing others' work. That was very useful to me at the beginning of the career, at least. The time, actually, the background that I had, that actually really helped me. That actually helped me when I am reading Bible also. When I read the Bible, I used to ask how to apply this in our life. That makes it more interesting because just knowing the verses are not enough. Just applying that in our life, actually, that makes all the differences. So I observe a lot of characters in the Bible. So there are things like I continue to reiterate some of the old stories from the Bible. Today also we are going to meditate on one of a set of verses. These verses are most believed verses in the entire world. Most read verses in the entire world. What I mean is, these verses are there in Quran, these verses are there in Torah, and these are believed by Jewish people. These verses are read and believed by Muslims. Of course, as Christians, we believe them. And there was a survey about 1985 or 1986. This was a story that majority of the world that believed. I'm not sharing these verses just because it's the widest or most believed or most read incident in the Bible, but the long-lasting effect it had on my life. This story, of course, all of you know these verses from your Sunday classes. These are very, very, probably the multiple times people repeated these verses to you. But as I was growing up, like this started teaching me some important lessons that I could not understand when I first heard this story in my Sunday class. I would like to share some of these lessons with you. If you have Bible, if you keep it with you, like mostly I would like to make it a little bit more interactive, where if you can read Genesis chapter 22, verse 1. The first lesson that we learn from this chapter, this incident, is the immediate obedience. So God calls him as Abraham. Immediately he says, "Here I am, God." God wants us to be available. So throughout the history of Bible, before he actually has a real dialogue with us, the real critical conversation with us, there is no place that God directly comes and starts communicating all the directional things or the important critical aspects. Most of the places that you observe, God actually calls you, calls the person. He makes sure that he acknowledges that calling. So most of the time, like when we see in the English Bible, it says, "Here I am." We see when God calls Moses in Exodus 3:4, God calls Moses and he responds, "Here I am." He says, "Here I am." Then God actually gives him the directions, what to do next. Very, very important, kind of a very directionally changing things that he tries to explain. But he first calls his name. After he acknowledges, "Here I am," then he starts explaining. If you look at Samuel, we know the story of Samuel. In Samuel chapter 3, verse 4, Samuel hears the Lord's calling, "Samuel." And the third time he responds, "Here I am." Do we know why he did not respond in the first two times? Because he didn't know. He was a small boy. He didn't know, so he used to go and talk to the Eli and ask him, "Who's calling me? I don't know." But God actually, when he first called him, probably he could have just told me, "Here, Samuel, this is God." But God, some reason, he waited for Samuel to acknowledge that, "Here I am," before he started explaining the biggest thing that he was revealing to him. If you look at Isaiah 6:8, "And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?' Then Isaiah said, 'Here I am, Lord, send me.'" There are multiple things. When you do a Google search for "Here I am," Lord, many things. Like, when angel of the Lord calls Mary, first she acknowledges, "Here I am, God." Then he tells the most influential, most important incident that happened on the entire life, the birth of Jesus. After Mary says, "Here I am." So I don't know the entire thing, but God asks us to acknowledge his calling before he starts explaining the next things. I don't know, probably in this age, we are all busy, right? We just go to work. When we are going to work, we attend meeting. As soon as we get into the parking lot, something is coming up. In lunchtime, we are multitasking. In the evening, we shuttle the kids from one place to another place or something else. The entertainment, we watch TV. Even watching TV, we don't have a lot of time these days. But God, some reason, but today probably we might not be hearing God's voice in our ear. But when he calls, are you saying, "Here I am, God"? It's very important to learn from here that until we say, "Lord, I'm here, I'm available to listen to you, I'm available to hear you," I don't think he's going to talk to you about the next important things. I can show you consistently from the Bible that until we make ourselves available and just listen to him and tell him that, "Here I am, Lord," I don't think he's going to talk to us about the biggest thing. He's not a God, he just pushes his agenda into our heart. He just looks for the receptive heart. Then he starts explaining the things. There are multiple stories, I don't have all the time, but I do have a lot of notes. Then let's go to the second verse. If one of you could read the second verse.
அப்பொழுது அவர், "உன் புத்திரனும் உன் ஏகசுதனும் உன் நேசகுமாரனுமாகிய ஈசாக்கை நீ இப்பொழுது அழைத்துக் கொண்டு மோரியா தேசத்துக்கு போய் அங்கே நான் உனக்கு குறிக்கும் மலைகள் ஒன்றின் மேல் அவனை தகனபலியாக பலியிடு" என்றார்.
Yep. Here God gives the most challenging test or most challenging sacrifice that is asking for anyone that we probably know of. Abraham struggled to have a child almost towards the end of the life. When he was very, very old, God blesses him with a child. Now he's asking. I just want you to think about it. If you have to really grasp this entire story, we can't even put ourselves in his shoes. I don't think we are anywhere closer to just apply ourselves in his shoes. At least I am not. But I don't think we'll get this essence of this story until we put ourselves in that situation. He's saying, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love." He's very, very clear. One of the things that we know in this verse that we can learn is God's directions are always crystal clear. He does not give any vague commands. He does not give any ambiguous directions. His point on. Whatever information is needed, he provides that information. He is very clearly saying that it's going to be a burnt offering. Burnt offerings are someone has to kill Isaac and he has to burn. And he's saying where. He talks about what, how, and where. He tells you have to go to the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there a burnt offering on the mountain I will show you. There's some information he will show when you go to the region of Moriah, but he's very clear. In the Bible also we see that majority of the incidents, God's directions are, he never gives a incomplete instruction. He always gives a very, very, very clear instruction. When Naaman went for the leprosy, he told where to go in the river Jordan, whom to meet, and how many times you have to dip yourself within that river. If you look at the wall of Jericho, that incident, God very clear about the incident. How to go, who goes behind whom, what instrument goes behind whom, where the singers are going and how many times you have to do, then the Jericho will fall down. When God turns water into wine, he was very, very clear about the instructions. How many jars? How many of you remember? 7 jars, right? 7 jars and all the water actually converted into wine. So he was, most of the things he was very clear. Like even in the case of just before the Palm Sunday, he sends this the disciples to a place to get the donkey. He clearly tells you have to go there, ask this guy. He will say that and get that one from that donkey only go. So God, what I'm learning from here is God's directions are always, when God talks to you about a direction, he's not vague. He brings a lot of clarity into our life. So at any point in time, we are kind of losing directions or unable to see what's going on. Probably we have to wait upon the God to give us the right direction. That clarity is something that God provides to us. If one of you could read the verse 3. Genesis chapter 22, verse 3.
So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him.
Yes, early in the next morning, Abraham got up. I don't know, I just can't resist myself thinking about, I don't think he would have slept. Even for small things, when we have some conflict with someone or some family problem and all, it's very hard to get sleep. God is asking one of the most sacrificial things that at least I know of. I don't think he would have slept. The scholars estimate that Isaac's age is in the late teens or early 20s. Let's say from 2022. That's the time actually these kids they kind of go from youth to young adult. They learn a lot from us. They try to ask us a lot of very practical questions. He's a kind of friend, right? When people say that when the kid is at your height, it's like he's your friend, no longer a kid. It's a different bond you develop, like when the kids actually go into that age. It would have been very hard, but his Bible says that he got up early in the morning. The next morning he got up. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. The important thing that we need to understand here is he did not consult with anyone else. He did not talk to his wife. He did not talk to his friends. He did not talk to his family. Because it's a huge deal. Imagine he went to the mountain, give the sacrifice, coming along without Isaac. Do you know what would have happened? I don't know. I can't even imagine what would have happened. But he just had this immediate obedience for God. He trusted God. God and Abraham built a relationship that he trusted him completely, he just immediately obeyed. He did not negotiate with God. God, can you give me another 20 years before I can sacrifice him? Or can I, like he was a big millionaire, he was a big guy. He would have told that I can do all these bulls or lambs. He did not negotiate. Bible does not record he negotiated with God. As soon as he says, your son Isaac, burnt offering, he did not say anything. I don't think it would have happened if he consulted with wife or servants or family. He just prioritized God over everything else. He knows that in the past, he's not a perfect man. He has had a lot of his ups and downs. In the case of the other son, the Ishmael and Hagar and other things and all. But he kind of developed a relationship with God in such a way that when God asked for such a big sacrifice from him, he immediately obeyed. We know this phrase, delayed obedience is disobedience. But I just want to just take a pause and think about us. When God talks to us, when God talks about some sacrifice, it could be some time or the talent or the money that we have or something that we have to sacrifice to God, how are we reacting? Are we obeying God right away? Or forget about the sacrifice even. Do we obey like Abraham obeyed? But we see in the result of all this, in the 18, the outcome of all these things. And through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Like such a great testimony that God gives about Abraham just because of this first point. Immediate obedience. Because you obeyed me. God respects the obedience more than anything else. Not only God tells this promise, about other things. There are many places God talks about Abraham as his friend. James 2:23 says, Abraham believed God and it was accounted to him for righteousness and he was called the friend of God. 2 Chronicles chapter 20 verse 7 says, are you not our God who drove out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel and gave it to the descendants of Abraham, your friend forever? Isaiah 41:8 says, but you Israel are my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the descendants of Abraham, my friend. I have a couple more references too. God calls him as a friend. He did not, the way he obeyed, I don't think we can even just mentally build that story of how he obeyed. And he kept his cool. Another thing just amazes me is that I don't see anywhere that he was like making fuss of it, like crying or, that's what it's hard to believe for me. Like he didn't just, nothing is mentioned in the Bible about he acted in a different way. He was very cool. Like we have this song, right? Viswasiye, ni padarade, Viswasiye. There is no padatam in his life. Padarave. Can we sing the song, the two line? Viswasiye, ni padarade. Please sing with me. Viswasiye, ni kalangade. Viswasatal, நீதிமான் என்றும் என் பிழைப்பான் விசுவாசத்தால் நீதிமான் என்றும் பிழைப்பான். So when we talk about obedience, Philippians 2:8 says, Jesus, Bible says about Jesus how he obeyed and submitted to the Father God, even though it's a Trinity. Philippians 2:8, I just want to read and move on quickly. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to glory of God the Father. This verse starts with how Jesus obeyed when he was in the world. Even though it's slightly complex to understand for us, there are a lot of obedience that you can see in the Bible, but this Abraham's immediate obedience, it's an outstanding example for us. So we need to ask now what God is actually asking from us. It may not be the sacrifice. It may not be even any sacrifice at all. But probably God is asking us to obey something. Probably God talked to you today morning, or probably God is talking to you right now, or God is probably going to talk to you tomorrow morning. How are you going to react to that when God is actually asking us to do something? What would be our reaction if just ask us to go to another country to start a ministry? What would be our reaction if God shows a place in India or somewhere else, ask us to build a church? It could be anything. I'm just trying to make it a little bit simple, but it could be anything. But the important lesson that we learn, the example, Abraham sets a very high bar for us. He just immediately obeyed on the biggest challenge, the biggest sacrifice that we can't even think in our mind, but he obeyed. The second point I want to talk about is make your sacrifices secretly. So just now we saw, what does it mean? Because here, Abraham is going to do a biggest sacrifice, like that we can't even think. He didn't just share with anyone else at all. He didn't share with his wife. He didn't share with his friends or family, even the servants. He had, the Bible says that he had a huge number of servants and a lot of people to take care of him in the house, outside the house, and on the farm and land and other things. He doesn't talk to him about anything. He could have publicized what God asked him openly. God talked to me, he's asking for the biggest surprise. He would have built empathy for him and his family, or just it's the huge thing he's going to do. But he just kept it very secretly. He did not want a publicity. He does not want to be popular just because he's trying to do something beyond that anyone else of his time or now would be struggling to do. He kept everything secretly. That's something I learned from this. When I first, many years ago, when I read about this verse, I just kept thinking how he kept all these things within himself. These are the times we really need some counseling. We talk to, at least to vent it out, we talk to people. Otherwise, I don't know how he controlled his tears. But he kept everything because the relationship that he had with God, he kept his sacrifice very, very secret. And the secret, he couldn't even tell this to Isaac. He's walking with him, probably a good-looking young man walking with him on the side or the front or the back. He didn't tell him. He kept on asking at a certain point, Father, we have the knife and the fire, where is the offering? A decent young man with a decent IQ can guess that something is a problem here. But still, he did not even talk to Isaac about the thing that what he is doing for God. So if you could read the verse number 5, please, one of you. 22 verse 5.
அப்பொழுது ஆபிரகாம் தன் வேலைக்காரரை நோக்கி, நீங்கள் கழுதையை நிறுத்தி இங்கே காத்திருங்கள், நானும் பிள்ளையாண்டானும் அவ்விடம் மட்டும் போய் தொழுது கொண்டு உங்களிடத்துக்கு திரும்பி வருவோம் என்றான்.
He says in Tamil also very nicely written, நானும் பிள்ளையாண்டானும் போய் தரிசித்து விட்டு திரும்பி வருவோம். We will worship and then we will come back to you. So we will worship, and we know that sacrifice is a type of worship. But then he says, we will come back to you. He trusted God that God will not make that happen for some reason. He says that we will worship and we will come back to you. We will come back. He's not saying we will go and I will come back. He's wholeheartedly going to do the sacrifice as a burnt offering. But he also had a trust for God that we will come back to you. Do we have a similar faith? Then God asks us to do something. Do we have this faith? We will come back. There are times we used to be very kind of politically correct in our words, even when we are giving testimony, or even in my case, when I talk to other people, God willing, we will come back. All those things we know, but he has this relationship with God. Only few people I have seen, even in my friend circle, even within our church, there are some people, they are very particular in the God will do this for me. I like those testimonies because that just shows the relationship with God. But many times we are not sure. We just say, God willing, it will happen. God not willing, it will not happen. And we are trying to be kind of protecting ourselves. But here he is very confident in God. We will worship, then we will come back to you. Then verse 6 says, Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife as the two of them went on together. So now they can see the mountain where he is going to be sacrificed. Now he took only 2 servants. He had a lot of servants. In those days, these offerings are a kind of function. They just, a lot of people with the family and all, they go, right? But this is a kind of a different offering God is asking for. So he took only 2 servants. Now he can see the mountain from there. So he's asking both the servants to stop. Now he's shifting from the donkey or from the servant and putting the wood down there, placed on the son Isaac. And now, I don't know about you, but I know for sure that now Isaac would have definitely got the point. Something is a problem. The next verse says, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, Father, yes, my son, Abraham replied, the fire and the wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? So by this time, he understood everything, but he does not disclose. He does not disclose anything, and he's still moving further. Abraham answered, this is one of the best verse that we can see in the Bible. God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son, and the two of them went on together. So God will provide. It's also in Tamil Bible, actually in other places it's written, Kartharudiya Parvadathil Parthukollappadum. That means you can actually have very strong faith. If there is anything missing, God will actually take care of it. And he says that, come with me, and the burnt offering, it will be taken care by God. That's what he says. Now the next one is the very interesting one. It's a kind of very close to the climax, right? 9, it says, when they reached the place of God had told him about, Abraham built an altar where arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac. So now there's no misunderstanding for Isaac, and laid him on the altar on the top of the wood. So he put that wood, whatever is there in Isaac's head, and put it on the altar. He ties him, because for the burnt offering you have to first kill that offering. He ties him. This is something probably we might glance it and go fast on this verse. I'm not against, don't misunderstand me as the point I'm trying to, how can I communicate this? He's a young man. He's kind of like scholars say, like about 25 years old. He's a pretty old man. He's trying to bind with some kind of rope, because obviously, like human instinct, when you try to kill him, like obviously we react. But Isaac doesn't say anything. Bible doesn't record that he resisted his dad. So what Abraham, his faith, actually now, it's not, Isaac has been seeing his faith for a long time. He understands it. My dad is trying to do a sacrifice. I don't want to resist him. So this is the kind of the byproduct of our faith, right? We struggle with our faith, we set it right. But one thing, our children are always watching. Can any of us, including me, can say, assume I have that faith, or I have some little faith in some other things. Would my children have that similar faith? Here I see Isaac is depicting the same level of faith that his father is showing. I'm not only, when I was reading, like the point that came to us, I'm not against the old people, even I'm getting old. He could have pushed him. He could have run away. I don't think Abraham could have chased him. He's a young chap. Actually, he could have kicked him out and he wanted to resist. But he fully submitted. Here, both people, both Abraham and Isaac, both fully surrendered to God. And when Abraham is tying with the rope, he's just giving him. Now more pain will be on Isaac. Isaac knows that he's going to be killed. But Abraham knows that God is going to do something. That's the kind, like, do we have this faith? Do our children learn from us on this faith that we show in the difficult times that we go through? He's like, whatever happens, he just fully, they both are trusting God. Like this song, Enna Vandalum Nambuven. Can they sing this song like a couple of lines? Enna Vandalum Nambuven, Enne Sarni Pare. Please sing with me. Yakai Vittalum Pin Selve, Yenadu Yesuvai. எவ்வளவன்பு கூர்ந்தார், என்ன துன்பங்கள் வந்தாலும் அவர் என்னை கைவிட மாட்டார். என்ன துன்பங்கள் வந்தாலும் அவர் என்னை கைவிட மாட்டார். So that's the kind of the two people displaying the strongest faith, the pure form of obedience and the pure form of faith that we can probably, one of the best examples that we see. The third point, I want to kind of wrap it up. Third point is, it's pretty important. Be flexible. It's a very short point, so very fast. So then the verse 10 says, then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. So he's not taking the knife. And you imagine Isaac is actually on the altar, bound with the rope and everything. He's about to just kill him. So God is actually waiting until the last moment. Okay, he came from home, he didn't tell anyone. Now below the mountain, then he let both the servants go. Then he goes there and he's going to kill him, right? Slay his son. And Abraham kept his word. Like probably every step we can analyze, like how pain he would have gone through. But he kept his word until that. So he was ready to give his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Again he says, here I am. I don't know, such a nice word. It says, here I am. It's still, I see the calmness in his voice. Here I am, God. Do not lay the hand on the boy. God was right on time. A few seconds here or a few seconds there, not here. A few seconds later, all gone. God knows the right time. And to start something, also when to conclude something. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God. This is the testimony that God gives, changes the test into a testimony. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld your son from me, your only son. That's the thing, right? We have to be what I'm trying to say. I think third point I didn't communicate on. Be flexible, meaning now God stopped, and so immediately he stopped. Now he didn't say, no, God, you told me, now I'm going to kill him. No. When he says stop, he stopped. He didn't he's just following God, whatever he says. Sometimes God changes directions. Like we know Jonah case, and there are times people pray and God changes the direction. We have to be flexible. We cannot say that God, you gave me that word, you asked me to do this, I will anyway go and do it. No. But when God says change the direction, we have to be flexible. And we have to be very flexible in faith when God changes a thing. God does not change direction that much. That I can tell you. I searched even in the internet. Give me the example of all the times God changed the direction. Very, very few cases. After a lot of people prayed continuously, God changes direction. Many, many times, God does not change direction. When He sets a direction, He just goes with that. But when He changes the directions, we have to be flexible. Probably He's trying to say something, or people are praying to God and different things that happens. So He kept the promise, and God provided. But can anyone tell me what's the immediate obedience? What made Abraham to obey God? It's a friend of God. He trusted God 100%. I think that's what I think. He trusted God 100%. That's the only reason. He just thought, whatever happens, he didn't question, through my offspring, all these, the stars in the sky, or like the sand in the seashore. He did not. He knows that God will make it happen. Either even if he's died, he will resurrect it from the dead, or something will happen, and God actually, Abraham fully trusted God. I believe that's the key point here. He trusted God, and that's the foundation for Abraham's obedience. So, then what does it mean? Like, when we struggle to obey, what does it mean? We are not trusting God. That's what it means. When we struggle to obey something, it means we are not trusting God. And Abraham trusted God because there are multiple places Abraham followed God, and God provides. And many places in Genesis we see that God provides. I would like to close it here. Shall we all stand up and we'll start praying? So there are, like, when I searched in the Google about, tell me all the places where God provides, there are 169 verses that talk about how God provides for us. In most cases, He provides even more than that what we can imagine. And when people get tired, God gave rest. When people got weak, God provided strength. When people are worn out, God provided shelter. When we are discouraged, God provides encouragement. When we are lonely, God provides the company. When we are confused, God provides the clarity and the direction. When we lose our direction, God gives us the correction. When we mess up, God also forgives. Many places. I can go on how actually God provides. But one thing though, towards the end, when you see this end of this chapter, when God provided the substitute for Isaac, they found a lamb that stuck in the fence. God provided an opportunity to worship them again. God's people always find opportunity to worship. He didn't immediately go and say, okay, I'm done, let's go down from the mountain. No, he took the opportunity, and he did the sacrifice to God, and they worship. Just pray for a few minutes. Heavenly Father, Lord, let's all look unto Him. God, probably, I was trying to choose another topic, but this is something, a whole topic that I had in my mind. But some reason God brought up this. God, we have to believe that. I think it's a reverse way. We have to first trust that God provides. I don't know what you are going through, what I am going through. Probably we are not sharing with each other. But God, we have to all trust that God actually provides. If you look at the example in the Bible, God provides. Then we have that trust with Him. God provides. Then everything is possible. We will immediately obey God. We will keep our sacrifices secretly. We'll be flexible and we'll worship God and everything. So, but we have to trust God that God actually provides. It's not only a material thing. It could be spiritual thing or something emotional thing. But we have to trust God that God provides the support. I think once, as I said, many times we are not immediately obeying because probably we are not trusting God. But when we have the strong trust, that's the foundational truth, that we will start doing other things automatically. We will sing the song and finish, then we'll ask Brother Rajatam to come and sing. But this is a prayer. குயவனே உம் கையில் களிமண் நான் உடைத்து குயவனே உம் கையில் களிமண் நான் உடைத்து உருவாக்கும். Shall we all sing together? குயவனே உம் கையில் களிமண் நான் உடைத்து உருவாக்கும். என் சித்தமல்ல உம் சித்தம் நாதா, தருகிறேன் உம் கையிலே. என் சித்தமல்ல உம் சித்தம் நாதா, தருகிறேன் உம் கையிலே. என்னை தருகிறேன் தருகிறேன் உம் கரத்தில். என்னை படைக்கிறேன் படைக்கிறேன் உம் பாதத்தில். என்னை தருகிறேன் தருகிறேன் உம் கரத்தில். என்னை படைக்கிறேன் படைக்கிறேன் உம் பாதத்தில். உருவாக்குமே என்னை உருவாக்குமே உருவாக்குமே என்னை உருவாக்குமே. என்னை தருகிறேன் தருகிறேன் உம் கரத்தில். என்னை படைக்கிறேன் படைக்கிறேன் உம் பாதத்தில். என்னை தருகிறேன் தருகிறேன் உம் கரத்தில். என்னை படைக்கிறேன் படைக்கிறேன் உம் பாதத்தில். உருவாக்குமே